What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to talk about Francis Ngannou. Of course, I'm sure you guys know by now, Francis Ngannou had a boxing match against Tyson Fury this past weekend where he really surprised everyone with his performance. He was great, landed a shot on Tyson Fury that actually dropped Fury, and depending on who you ask, actually won this fight. Personally, I don't know, it's really close. Like, I understand why the judges gave it to Fury, but Fury didn't do anything particularly impressive to where you would really just give him the automatic win. I think Francis did a lot, but if we're going by boxing rules, then I guess you have to give it to Fury. But I don't know, boxing's kind of dead in my opinion, and honestly, I wasn't really super excited. But with the outcome of this fight, there gave a lot of questions to the MMA world and the boxing world, and that's, what should Francis Ngannou do next? There's actually quite a few options, I think, for him now in MMA and in boxing. And honestly, if I were to lean to one, I would probably say boxing. I think Francis, not that I could see him being a champion at this point, but who knows, maybe he could. I think there's a lot more interesting fights in boxing than there is in MMA for him right now. I mean, not being in the UFC is a big thing. Whether people like to make it out to be or not, it is. At the end of the day, you're not fighting in the UFC, so fighting MMA in other promotions at this point, while diehard fans are going to enjoy it, it's not really going to reach the general public, and it's not going to maximize your income or how much you can make off these fights. And I actually think Ngannou is in a really interesting position right now in his career. I think he is one of these multi-sport combat athletes that could really do whatever he wants now. And when he left the UFC, a lot of people were saying, oh, Francis is an idiot, he really messed up here, shouldn't have left the UFC, his career's done now. And after going out there and doing what he did to Fury, he definitely grew his career and changed the trajectory of it completely. Not only did this fight open the door for Francis and give him a lot of other potential opportunities, it also did it for MMA fighters in general. I think we'll probably see more MMA fighters try and get into the boxing scene and honestly like their chances instead of just going for a payday now, which is super interesting and something I'm not completely against. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to see Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou as much as the next guy, but is that really a realistic fight at this point? Like, sure, if Jon Jones for some odd reason left the UFC, maybe, but do you guys really think Dana's ever going to try and get into business with Francis again? No. Dana is stubborn, and he made his decision, and he's going to stick with it no matter how big Francis gets. And people are going to say that Dana might have fumbled the bag now, which is kind of true in a way, but at the same time, I don't think Dana is really too worried about this, and neither is Francis. I don't think he really cares about even fighting in MMA anymore after this. So if he's not fighting in MMA, what's next for him exactly? It's going to be boxing, and I think there's a lot of interesting fights for him in boxing right now in the heavyweight division. The two big names for me, though, are probably Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. I think both of those fights could be very interesting in different ways, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens here. What I did see was, apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently Deontay Wilder and Francis Ngannou may fight inside of an octagon. I don't know whose idea that is, but that will not go well, I guarantee you it. This isn't just people like saying, oh, Francis has no chance against Fury, this is different levels. Like, no. If you lock Ngannou and Deontay Wilder inside of an octagon, something bad will happen and it won't be to Francis Ngannou. And that's also where this boxing and MMA crossover fighting gets a little weird, because yeah, you can pull these MMA guys and throw them in the boxing ring and they would do somewhat well. Probably not winning a lot of them, but they would do well. Whereas you can't take the boxers and put them in MMA, because there's just so much to MMA that boxers would have to learn, and in such a short amount of time, I don't think it would be doable. Like, I don't think if Deontay Wilder trained MMA for a year, he would still even come close to Francis Ngannou in a cage. It's just not something that would happen. So when people are asking like, oh, I want to see boxers go into MMA, we've seen MMA guys go into boxing, number one, it's not going to happen because of the money, and the pay will just never be there. And number two, it's just not plausible for these boxers to end up learning enough in MMA to to actually challenge professional MMA fighters. So if we're ruling out Deontay Wilder hopping into an octagon, I guess we could still see them in a boxing match. And honestly, I think that'd be pretty fun. You have two monstrous punchers, probably the two heaviest hitting punchers in combat sports right now. And I think there's a lot of build-up you can do with that fight. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. And also, most importantly for a lot of these guys, there's a lot of money to be made. I know I mentioned Anthony Joshua before, but if I had to pick between the two, I think Wilder is the bigger fight and the better fight for Ngannou to take at this point. I actually think Anthony Joshua could cause Francis Ngannou a lot of issues in boxing, in the ring. I think his style is just more fitted to beat a guy like Francis. He can match Francis's speed, probably not his power, but he could definitely match his speed, and he could take punches. And I think he would just fare better than, honestly, even Fury did. Whereas Wilder, who I still think could do very well in a fight against Francis, there is more holes in his game that I think Ngannou could exploit, and I think it would just be a more competitive fight. That's why I'd probably prefer to see that. So yeah, that's what I think. I don't think Francis is going to be hopping into a cage anytime soon, to be honest. I know he has that PFL deal, and maybe we could see him hop in there, but at this point, after what happened, I would not be shocked if we don't see Ngannou, honestly, ever fight in a cage again. I mean, I think the rumors were that he made $10 million just to show up for this fight, which is way more than he's ever made in MMA. And he's also always wanted to be a boxer his entire life before he even knew what MMA was. So it just feels like Francis is on this path now that he wants to be on, and he can be really successful in it. That's going to do it for this one, though. I want to hear your guys' thoughts now, though. I want to see what you guys are thinking. Do you guys think he should go back to MMA? Do you think he should stick with boxing? And if he were to stick with boxing, who should he fight? Who is the name that really gets you excited? Hell, should he rematch Tyson Fury? I mean, I think that could be something on the cards. I know Fury has that fight booked with Usyk, so he'd probably have to wait a bit, but I mean, we could do that again. I wouldn't mind it, but I still think I'd prefer to see a fresh opponent. Deontay Wilder's my pick. I'm going to go with that. I think that would be a fun fight. And yeah, I want to thank you guys once again for watching another one of my videos. If you guys enjoyed, consider subscribing for more content like this. And yeah, drop your thoughts in the comments down below on who you think Francis should fight next and what you think he should do with his career. I want to thank you guys for watching another one of my videos again. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.